welcome to Inspiring Women with ADHD. I'm Renee Allen, the host of this podcast. Excited to be here today. If you're new to the podcast, I mentioned in the last episode that I went onto Threads last week. First time spending more than a minute there, and decided to engage with women with ADHD and just talk to people and what people do on Threads, just share thoughts and things. And then one day, Friday, I think, I posted that if anyone was interested in being a guest on my podcast, let me know. It would be fun to talk to a woman with ADHD. You could come on and share your struggle or one of your struggles, because you probably have a lot that's related to ADHD. We talk about it, give some ideas, strategies, and maybe that could benefit other women. Well, by the time I went to bed that night, I had over 100 replies. Before that, if I posted on there, I had maybe 3 or 2 or 0 replies. And yeah, and it's been interesting because some of them were saying things like, well, I'd go on there and I'd go off on tangents and I get distracted, and who knows if I could stay on topic and all those things, or I may forget I even told you yes, or all these things that are common with ADHD. And I thought, yeah, I do that too when I just host the podcast on my own. So thank you for being patient with that and being okay with somebody who's not all professional and formal. And I mean, we don't all need people in our lives that are professional and formal, but that is more common when people are giving or sharing information, or they're coming on with some advice or hopefully some direction to go in. And I do have that, but I also have a lot of my own ways that come through. So thanks for being patient for that. With that, even when I say for that, when I'm supposed to say, whatever, I'm not going to edit it out because that's a lot of work. So anyway, today is Mindful Monday, Mindfulness Monday, Mindful Monday, whatever we want to call it. And I wanted to talk to you about nervous system regulation. And it doesn't sound like a very fun name. It's like big words that aren't pretty. If you like words like I do, they're not like blissful. Blissful, I think, is a prettier word. Sounds prettier, it looks prettier. But nervous system regulation, we have a nervous system in our bodies. Did you ever listen to or watch, what was it called? Oh, I can't think of it. Schoolhouse Rock. There's a song about the nervous system. And there's also a lot of songs about, lolly, 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 get your adverbs there and all that, a lot about grammar. But they also talked about the nervous system, and which I didn't really think about that was stress as when you're a child, or even just playing it for my kids. As a child, I watched it actually on Saturday mornings in between cartoons and things. They had it instead of a commercial. You get to watch one of those, but it wasn't like a whole show of Schoolhouse Rock. It would just show up, at least from what I remember. And then one day they had it on video or on DVD, and I bought it for my kids. And then I bought a backup one because we scratched it so much. And so now my grandchildren watch it. But it's called The Nervous System. I don't know how that song goes because I didn't listen to it as much, but my kids probably do. But what I've learned from teaching yoga and from attending yoga workshops and trainings and things is that the nervous system regulates what comes in. So we know how to react. And so if something happens that's dangerous, we go into a more stressed, energetic mode. And people often call it fight or flight. And then later in life, I learned fight, flight, or freeze, because sometimes when something startles you, you might just, react in that's kind of a quick freeze. And then you might do more, that's like fighting, running, whatever, yelling. Or you might literally freeze and just not know what to do. Or things kind of slow down and like, is this really happening? When something is so different than normal life, it could even just be news that you get from somebody, that someone calls up one night and they tell you something that's happening in your family, of somebody cheated on their wife, and that and in your mind it's just not going along with anything that you thought was gonna happen. And so that becomes a it becomes a stress to your body, and it impacts your nervous system. And you might go into more of a frozen mode for longer than just right then. You might just kinda walk around like in a daze, or I kinda think of like a zombie. Sometimes your whole demeanor changes, or your whole how you feel changes. You might not be hungry anymore, or you might be more hungry, or, things shift in your body and you feel more tension, and you might not sleep as well, or a lot of things. There's just so many ways that we can take in startling information, or dangerous information, or just things that are just super stressful. You watch the news on TV, or however we get our news now, and all of those things can shift us into, what? I didn't know that she passed away, or something. It could be a famous actress or something. And you go through these different emotions, and our bodies are designed to experience those emotions. That's what happens in a body. But what can happen is, if you take in so much of that information, or if it's something that is just so life shattering. There are a lot of things that happen that are life shattering, like a death or something like that, or a big change in your family, that it can cause health issues. It can cause your brain not to work as well. It can cause a lot of problems, a lot of tension in your body. It impacts how you interact with people. And so what impacts the nervous system and how often that happens, or if you're not able to regulate your nervous system and get yourself out of that fight, flight, or freeze mode, that more tensed up, it's not a good way to live, and it causes actual health problems. So I used to teach yoga to firefighters, and it was actually a program that my friend designed called Fireflex Yoga. And one of the things that she would present to these fire departments was, besides the health, flexibility, mobility aspect, there's that a lot of firefighters can't bend in their bodies as well, or they don't have the flexibility. They're really strong, but they might not be able to get down on the ground and bend in a way that's better for their bodies. And so they might work on their mobility or their flexibility. And they might also work on tuning into their bodies, and noticing things that they might not. So that's just kind of the more, are you aware of what's happening, and more of an awareness that can happen with yoga. But you also are able to regulate your nervous system. You're able to take your body and your mind when you're in that stressed out state, which can be a lot for a firefighter. They're constantly getting calls during the day. They could be eating dinner, they could be talking, they could be in the middle of a yoga class. That happened all the time that I'd be teaching. And we could hear the scanner, and the scanner would go off, and half of them would leave, or all of them would leave, or whatever that was. And they were used to doing that all the time. I didn't go with them and see what they saw. Sometimes I'd stay and say, "Hey, I don't have a lot going on. If you want to come back, I'll wait." And sometimes I could actually, the fire department was close enough to the freeway that we'd actually hear the crash in our yoga class during rush hour traffic. We could hear the crash on the road, that they'd get in their truck and go, or their engine. I learned that fire trucks have a ladder, engines don't. So a lot of times they got into their fire engine, engine number 3 or whatever it was. But they are constantly getting put on alert, and they need to be on alert to be able to act in the middle of the night, get awakened on their 24, 48-hour shift, or whatever it is, and be able to help people, and be in a state of mind to know what to do. So you need a level of alertness to be able to do that. But if you continue to have that stress over and over and not manage it, not be able to regulate your nervous system, not be able to get that on call, constant alertness, whatever stresses that they're taking in, then what they're finding is that firefighters, as young as in their 30s, are having heart disease, heart attacks, uh, depression, all kinds of things that are caused by the stressful state that their bodies are in. And what they see more, what I was told by my friend, who was from a fire family, dad, brother, sister, that were firefighters, that they see more in a month than most of us see in our lifetime. They might see more in a week than most of us see in our lifetimes, and going into homes and situations. And so doing yoga, they were able to figure out what was going on in their body and manually, with their minds, with their bodies, come into a state that was more calming and get into that restful, relaxful, calm way. And going back home, they could do that. I talked to one of the women firefighters, and one day it was just her it was just the two of us. And she said that after her 48-hour shift, when she got home, what she did to regulate her nervous system was go on a walk with her dog. And we lived in the redwoods, and so she would go for a walk through the redwoods with her dog. And that can be super calming to your nervous system, to be out in nature, to be moving your body, to be with an animal, plants, all these things, and just let the brain and the body relax. And if we spend most of our lives in this taking in stressful information, whether it's from outside the world, within your families, within your job, within your life, your little circle, whether you're taking in that information constantly or even just a lot, it can still get you in that state, and it can cause a lot of problems in your life. And so having some kind of way to wind down when you get home or decompress. We have a lot of decompressing of, I just need to be alone. I just need to read a book. I need to do that. But are we really calming the nervous system? I remember when I first started teaching yoga, and I haven't looked up the study, so, who knows what the source was. But I heard from a yoga expert who had written a book, so I'm guessing it's true, is that they studied people. They studied, heart rate, all these things, to measure how calm you are, and of people who lay down on their couch and just relax on their couch watching TV for an hour, and then people who spent that hour doing yoga. And the people who did the yoga were far more calm in their bodies than the person watching TV. I don't know if they controlled what they were watching on TV, because some things can be really scary. But I would imagine they chose something kind of mellow. I don't know. But there are things that you do in a yoga class, and I'm not here just to promote yoga, but there are things that you do when you do yoga, the breathing techniques that really do help you get into that restful state. You can even do something like sing, just having that resonation in your body, the vibration or something is calming in your body. I don't know if you've heard of sound baths, but a lot of yoga studios or healing places, different businesses like that, will have sound baths. And what that is having different kinds of instruments. A lot of times they're singing bowls, they're big crystal bowls, and I actually have one over there. It makes so much sound, but it's different than playing a song on a speaker. And that makes a lot of sound. And what happens is that bowl is not only producing the sound, but it's producing very powerful sound waves. And I experienced this at a sound bath, the first one that I went to. I haven't been to that many, but it was the same lady each time. And I've conducted them, but really just, kind of low key at the end of a yoga class. But those crystal bowls, they actually put out the sound waves and you feel them in your body. If you're in a yoga class and they're singing Om or saying Om at the beginning or the end, it's not something it's something that I enjoy doing when I'm in a class. I don't like teaching it because it's not something that I understand on a spiritual level, to understand why people are doing that. Like, it's never quite connected with me for those kind of benefits. So I don't feel authentic teaching that. But if I go to a class and a teacher does that, they usually say Om 3 times. And what happens is it's not just an OM, it's like an AH Om, is like Om. Om. And so it's actually, the sounds are a little more varied. And what happens is that doing that, you can just do that in your car if you want or wherever you are. You say that, oh, you can feel that resonation in your chest. You can feel it in your shoulders. You can feel it in your arms. It is very calming. And not every kind of singing is that calming, but you still get that resonation in your body. And we know there's sound waves, right? We know we can lay on a floor, and if there's loud music or something, we can feel it in the floor. Well, our bodies feel it too. And so with the crystal bowls, with this crystal bowl lady is what she called herself, and she wore all white, and it was flowy and stuff, and had all these white gigantic bowls. And she had her biggest bowl at the end of the session. It was an hour session. We all probably, this is at a retreat center. We all laid down, probably a couple hundred of us, on yoga mats. And she asked us if we wanted earplugs at the beginning, and I'd never been to one before. I had singing bowls that are the brass ones, or there's 7 metals. They make them in Nepal or Tibet. And if Nepal is a city in Tibet, I'm gonna feel stupid, or is it 2 different? I gotta look it up. But, here I am going on. Um, but anyway, I have singing bowls that I've used in my classes because I love the way that they sound. Let's see, I'm so bad with geography. Nepal. That's a country, and Tibet's a country. Okay, good. I thought so. But, I never know when it's a region. So Tibet's a region in China. Yeah. Even if I learn this stuff, I don't remember it. So, okay. So back to the bowls. I have the Tibetan singing bowls, but sometimes they're made in Nepal. And those are loud and they resonate, but they're not nearly as loud as the crystal bowls. And the metal singing bowls, you can put them on your hands. If you hold it in your hands, and I'll see that people do this a lot, well, they're cup their hands like you're gonna hold like a bowl. If you hold a bowl in one hand without holding the top, you just like kind of curl your hand. You don't do that. You make your hand flatter because you want it's like a bell. You want the bell to ring, and bells usually, have a handle at the top or hang, because as soon as you touch it, it stops resonating, and that resonation helps make the sound. So with the bowl, in order to be like a bell, you have to flatten out your hand, and you're just kind of being like a board or something holding it without cupping it. And then you ring it, and you can feel that resonation all the way up into your arm. And even when you don't hear the sound, you still feel that resonation. The crystal bowls are super loud, and I've never held one. They're pretty heavy. Someone just gave me one, and I didn't realize how much louder it was than my other ones. But when this singing bowl lady did her hour, she passed out the earplugs and I just thought, oh, I probably don't need those. But I took them just in case. It was so loud. I was so glad I had the earplugs for hour. Like I'd have to like put my fingers in my ears. It would have hurt my head. But it was just super, super calming because that goes in. It's kind of like a massage from the inside. I mean, not truly massage, but it's causing some stirring up, right? And at the end, she invited any of us who wanted to come over, and she said, if you'd like, you can put your hand up, your arm out long, and put your hand up toward the biggest bowl, and I'll ring it, but you can't get any closer than this. And I would say we were probably 2 yards away, which I don't know what meters that is, but you could say 2 meters because I'm estimating anyway. And so we had our hands out. She rang it. It felt like something was pressing into our hands. It was that powerful. And so if you find a way to get that kind of inside out approach, that can be calming to your nervous system. Whether it's making some sounds, those oh sounds, those ah sounds, there is certain music that when you're singing it and you're holding out those notes, that can be calming to your nervous system. Going to a sound bath, that can be calming to your nervous system. Having your own bowl, putting it on your hand, or just I don't know, I've played with them a little bit in the house just to, get a little better at it, to be a singing bowl person, because since I started teaching hot yoga, I started bringing a rolling suitcase into my classes. It's a big parking lot where I teach hot yoga. It's at a big gym, and they added on a hot yoga room. And so you have to walk a long way through the parking lot, and you have to walk a long way through the gym to get into the hot yoga studio. And I was bringing my own cork blocks, which are kind of heavy. So I'd already been bringing my own stuff, which was a couple water bottles, a smoothie, and I don't know if you do this with your ADHD, where you over I don't know if you overplan, but you plan for everything. You plan for everything. You want to be comfortable. And I learned when I did hot yoga that if I didn't replenish right after, if I didn't have enough electrolytes, if I didn't have enough water, if I didn't have some kind of protein right after and all this stuff, I would feel completely wiped out and horrible for the rest of the day. So why I decided to teach hot yoga, I know it probably doesn't make sense because I thought I did hot yoga 3 times, but I never need to do that again. But the FOMO in me, when I heard they were building a hot yoga studio, yeah, I want to teach a hot yoga class. And I teach vinyasa flow, the same kind of yoga I teach it in a couple of the other classes. I teach a couple different styles, but I make it way more energetic in hot yoga because it's hot in there and it's fun. It's fun to sweat so much. But I was bringing in my own cork blocks because if my class was full, I have that empathetic part of me. I don't want anybody to go without a block. And then everyone's required to have a full length towel. We're supposed to tell them to leave if they don't have one, or go buy one for $5 at the front desk, or go to their car or their locker. And it's a long walk. So that empathetic part of me brought extra towels for them. And then I had to bring my drinks and all this stuff. And it was just too heavy to carry in my bags. So I started bringing a rolling suitcase. And I thought, well, as long as I'm bringing a little carry on, I might as well bring a singing bowl. Well, then that grew into I might as well bring both of my singing bowls because one of them's kind of big. Well, then I might as well buy a bigger one because then I could actually do a sound bath at the end of every class. So during Shavasana, which is the final pose where you just lay down 5, 10 minutes is usually what I do. And you lay down, get comfortable, and I play the bowls. And I let people, if they want, I have a little system that I came up with because that's another ADHD thing. We get very resourceful and creative when we have ADHD because there are things that maybe don't work for us as well as with other people. Another rabbit hole I can go down with you in just a minute. But anyway, if they so choose, then I place a singing bowl on their chest during Shavasana, and I ring it once or twice, kind of depending if I didn't get a strong enough ring the first time, on their chest, and they get to feel that in their bodies. And that is super calming. Or even the people near them get to have that bowl closer to them and feel it more as they hear it while they're in Shavasana. And so these kinds of things can be super calming for your nervous system. Breathing, there's different kinds of breathing techniques. I'm going to do a little series. I'm saying it out loud right now, so I actually do it. And I'll just wear my other microphone that actually records the breathing. But I'll do a little series with breathing techniques that you can easily do to help calm your body. And some of them seem kind of weird, but if you're in your room by yourself, nobody needs to see it. One of the breathing techniques is called lion's breath, and I've taught that in class, and it does look weird because you're literally just like sticking your tongue out and going, making weird sounds. But you're doing it, I don't know if you've done kettlebell swings, but a kettlebell swing, you lift it up and then you bow forward with your knees bent. You do that with lion's breath, so no one sees you doing that weird breath. But there's another one that's like bumblebee, and that one's kind of weird, but it does the same thing. It stirs us up in your body. And for me, with yoga, I'm not I do what works for me, and I share that, and I recognize that not everything works for everyone. So you might try one breathing technique and think, that's the one for me. You don't have to do all of them. You can just choose one that you like, or you might choose a few. Like this one I can use during the night when I wake up and can't go back to sleep. I have one of those. It's called Nadi Shodhana. If I'm saying it right, Shodhana. The English translation, I think it's kind of a yucky name. It's alternate nostril breathing because who wants to like have a title that has the word nostril in it? I don't. But that's another one. So yeah, you don't have to implement all of them into your lives, but you might find one really works and you like it, or it fits in better. Like last week I talked about Ujjayi breath, which sometimes people call ocean breath, but Ujjayi breath, I use it at stoplights all the time. Do I use it for very long? Do I hold the breath at a certain amount of time? No, but it still works. It still calms me. It gives me something to do when I'm antsy. If you have that ADHD, hyperactive, I can't stand to be in line. I can't stand to sit here. I want to go. I want to go. I want to go. You're getting yourself riled up and you're also having a hard time. So you do something to distract you. You do something to entertain you. And I know some people think yoga stuff is boring and it's not entertaining, but if it's just for yourself, I think it can be fascinating to learn more about yourself, to just experience being yourself, to notice what your breathing sounds like, what your body feels like. It can be kind of fun. So, and it can also be really good for you. Really good for you. Oh gosh, there's so many things with nervous system, the nervous system, and what can cause that to happen. And even anger. Like if you've seen people who are stuck in a state of anger for a long time, that's not good for their nervous system. If you're really sad for a long time, that can be hard. But I think that's one it's harder to just get out of. Like anger, I can talk myself out of anger, get a new mindset for that, new perspective. Sadness, maybe so. But I was just talking to my daughter about this, that when you feel sad about something, when something is really hard and you're just tired of it and you're discouraged and you're sad and you're crying, and then you have this mindset awareness and this shift. I've got a towel in my knee. I just realized that. And I got to change positions. But you, when that happens and you think, okay, how can I not feel sad all the time? I how can I feel bad about this? I should be grateful. There are a lot of people who are worse off than me. Or, you can always look, you can always find another person. You can always find another situation. And and in some sense that's good, because you don't want to just think I'm the only person in the world that experiences it and life's not fair, because there are a lot of people that experience really hard things and difficult things. But what I told her when we were talking about this, because she was feeling some guilt for continuing to be sad about her health and what was going on and all these things, when she could see that, yes, other people have it worse and this and that. And what I told her, it's okay to still be sad, even though you recognize the other. You can feel grateful for things, and feeling gratitude is good and important and wonderful. And it helps ground you. It's good for your emotional state to feel gratitude. But you shouldn't tell yourself that it's wrong to feel sad, or that you shouldn't still be feeling sad. Because if that's what you're truly experiencing, you need to you need to sit with those emotions and let them happen, and process things as it works for your body and your brain, and not try to just push it down and talk yourself out of it like you're some football coach on a field saying, "Snap out of it, get up and run, you're tough." You don't have to do that. You might need to do that when you need to function at work or with your kids. You might need to say, "I need to go in and help this child right now. That's important." And then go back and tend to yourself when you're sad. But sadness is something that can bring a hit, I guess, to the nervous system. And yet you can still do things that calm your nervous system. And a lot of times that involves crying. There are a lot of yoga meditations, a lot of yoga classes where people are crying at the end. Their eyes are red and wet and they've been crying, and they've been processing that sadness while calming their nervous system. Those things can go together. So a lot of things can, like, a nervous system heightened doesn't necessarily mean it's an emotion. Like, there are emotions that can exist with a calmer nervous system. Does that make sense? Like, we have a lot of extreme emotions, or not extreme, they're just, part of life emotions, ups and downs, and we need to function amidst them. But you need to notice, how tense are my shoulders? All those little things that you can notice in your body. How tense are my shoulders? How much do I feel in my face coming in and up? And if you look at someone who's upset and is yelling at somebody at the store, and you think, that poor person who works there, why is she treating, he treating her like that? Usually that's the way I've seen it. It's usually a man. But yeah, look at their shoulders. They're tensed up. They're all around it, or look at I talked about road rage last week. That is somebody who's not in a calm state at all. And I don't know if you have a problem with road rage. I don't. I I think I used to get more upset with drivers. I don't remember ever yelling or anything like that. But I do have people in my family who I've heard yell very easily, and and not as much anymore. But it, I think there's something to that that maybe helps the person. Like, it's a way of dealing with it by being justified. I don't know. Like like they're upset, so they think that, like, just expressing all that anger is gonna help them, but it really doesn't help the situation. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help other people in the car at all. At all, at all, at all. Yeah. So what do you do if you do take in some information and you're in that freeze state and you need to be able to act? That's where noticing things that can ground you, where you are, what's happening, noticing your breathing, like the little things, that is mindfulness. Or somebody's really upset with you and you want to stay calm, look around, like, it's almost like um, looking at the picture that you want to paint. What else is happening besides this person? What else is happening besides what's going on inside of me? And helping you remain calm. I know life's full of experiences, huh? I don't remember experiencing the freeze. I don't know if I've shared this on the podcast, and it is a mild thing compared to a lot of what a lot of women experience. We went on a trip. I don't know what year it was, 20 something, and we went to Greece. And I would say like 2017, 2016. I don't know. Anyway, we went to Greece, and we went to go see the Acropolis, which I always heard the Parthenon. I didn't realize the Acropolis is the hill, that tall hill in Athens that the Parthenon is on, and there are a lot of buildings up there. And I actually have a book behind me from the Acropolis Museum, and it's pretty cool, and it's pretty amazing. And I have a friend from Greece, from Athens, who was in my yoga teacher training in 2014. So that's why I'm thinking I knew it had to be after that. And then you have the whole COVID was 2020. Was it a year or two before that? Probably not. Anyway. So Eleni was back in Greece. She got a visa, 6-month visa, when she did the yoga teacher training in Santa Cruz. And the man that I trained with, a lot of people come from all over the world because he's written books. So then they think, well, he's probably the expert, and they come from all over the world to go to those trainings. But anyway, so I became friends with Eleni. She happened to be in town and picked us up from the airport, and we stayed in an Airbnb, and she came and met up with us during the day and took us up to the Acropolis and everything. And we're walking down, and I'm pretty sure Eleni was in front of me and my husband was behind me. So that my husband and I went on this trip together. And you walk up all these steps, you go and you pay at a little ticket booth. I don't know if you've ever been there. This was my first trip to Europe, and my first trip out of the country, not counting. So I'm from California, not counting Tijuana, which is just over the border from Mexico, Chula Vista. And the other place I'd been out of the country, neither places needed a passport, at least back in the 80s and 90s. But the other place was British Columbia, Vancouver, so it was just over the border again. So I didn't do a whole lot. I think we had to get different money in Vancouver. That was, like, the closest I got to going out of the country. Anyway, so we go to Greece. I'm taking all the sights and stuff. My husband's behind me. We're walking down the stairs after seeing all the sights, and I'm wearing a dress because the first night there, I saw all these women walking around wearing dresses, and I thought, "How cool that they're all wearing dresses." I usually dress as casual as I can, as comfortable as I can, and I think I brought 2 dresses. One was kind of a slippery polyester, and one was a black. They were both kinda travel dresses where you could just wad them up in a ball, and they would look the same as if they were all laid out perfectly, and and I thought, "Oh, that is pretty comfortable. Just wear a dress and some Birkenstocks and you're comfortable, but you look cuter than you are right now." So anyway, so I'm probably wearing this dress because I think I wore the same 2 dresses the rest of the trip. I'll have to look at the pictures, but I'm walking down the stairs, getting to my freezing moment, my first freezing moment that I can recall in my life. And blessed to have this be my first freezing moment because I'm in my probably 40s at the time. I don't know. I'm probably totally missing that. But I'm walking down the stairs and my hand is on the stair rail. I'm walking down, and my hand was there, like, in front of me, but I keep walking, and then my hand's next to me, and then I keep walking, and my hand's behind me. Why I'm walking that way, I don't know, but maybe that's common. I don't know. I never evaluated till this very second. So I'm walking down the stairs, and then I kinda stop, and I'm looking, and I feel this hand on my hand, and I thought, "Oh, my husband's holding my hand. That's so sweet." And then I go to turn to look at my hand, and the man's hand that was on my hand goes and caresses my rear end and just slides his hand over my bottom. And and as I'm turning to look to see my husband, because I'm thinking, "Oh, he's holding my hand." So I turn to look to say to him, well, in that split second that I turn to look, I feel the hand shift and caress around my bottom, and I look, and my husband's up the stairs quite a bit, and my husband wouldn't do that anyway, in public or whatever. But I freeze in that second of this man touching my bottom, and I'm just like, "What on earth is happening? This isn't my husband. My husband's right there," and I froze, and I'm sure I wasn't breathing. I'm sure I was just like, like, "What on earth?" And I just stayed frozen, and the man eventually got his hand off of me and kept walking, and then I turned and watched him walk the rest of the way down the stairs and give his girlfriend a hug and a kiss. And if I hadn't have been so frozen, I think of other times in my life, I would have traipsed down those stairs and said, "Do you know what kind of horrible person you have for a boyfriend?" Well, I shouldn't have punished her. I would have said, "You are," whatever. I was so in shock because it just shifted from a place of safety, of just walking around, 1, but 2, feeling a little bit even more secure. And maybe that was it, going from "Oh, I'm with my husband," to like, "Oh, no, this isn't an experience with my husband." And I am sure for other women that experience much, much worse, and that frozen state can just be really jarring. Or it's something like a danger of somebody coming up behind you or somebody being very aggressive. I think I mentioned, I don't know, several episodes about a man who was super aggressive with me and my son in a on a bicycle while we were in a car. I could not sleep that night. I could not sleep. I was sure he saw my license plate. And we're down in Los Angeles, and at the time, our house was, I don't know, 10 or 11 hours north, really far north in Northern California. And I was just sure that he was going to, like, you're not as rational in the middle of the night, that he would, like, memorize my license plate and find my house. How would you find my house? Maybe, he seemed like a lawyer because the way he seemed I shouldn't. I have friends who are lawyers, but he just seemed like he could argue any case and that he was always right, and he was intelligent. I was sure he was gonna find my license plate, take that license plate, find my house, and my house would be burned down by the time I got home. I was that scared. That was a different fight or flight. That was more flight and scared and worried and stressed. And then there's fighting, where you react just by fighting, of being startled and just acting like it could be a mama bear for your kids. It could be a, you go after things. I never know if I repeat my stories, but yeah, I was in the middle of the night once. I watched some videos at some friend's house, some guy's house during a holiday break. It must have been Thanksgiving or something. Nobody was around our apartment complex, just very, very few people. None of my roommates were home. I had 5 roommates and none of them were home. So I leave these guys' apartments like 2 in the morning, walk across this parking lot. Someone jumps out from behind a car wearing like a gorilla mask. You know those rubbery masks that creep you out even on Halloween? Do people even wear those anymore? I hated that because you never knew who they were. You're just like, I have to see your face. I have to see your eyes. Jumped out behind the car, yelled at me, and for some reason, I thought it was one of my friends in that apartment playing a prank, which was dumb, but I thought maybe they grabbed him like, "Oh, I'll go down and scare Renee." But I just yelled out like it was my fight thing, but more joking, like, "Oh my gosh, knock it off," just, I don't know that I said knock it up, but like, "Oh my goodness, you scared me. I can't believe you did that, blah, 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 blah," and just was not actually fighting them, but was just coming back with, "You just scared me. Now I'm just giving you that much energy back." And just gave all that energy of, "I can't believe you did that. Go home. blah, blah, blah." And then I walk away just thinking, "That was not normal." Like, who would do that? And that wasn't any of those guys. So do you ever take I remember hearing back then where you take all your keys and you put them in between your fingers so that you have something to hit with. So I was doing that as I walked back to my apartment. Um, I made it fine. But I think I gave him the fight or flight response. Like, I reacted so probably different than what he thought. I probably surprised him. So Uh, I think my examples aren't, nearly what a lot of people experience. But anytime that something happens that you take in some energy, it could just be somebody that almost runs into you. We're just talking about road rage, or I was just talking about road rage or something. Driving on the road, a lot of times things can uh, just be a surprise and startle us and stuff. Noticing how that feels in your body, what you're doing, and doing what you can to calm that. There's so many things you can do. Listen to relaxing music, take a hot bath, go for a walk, lay down, put your legs up the wall. My favorite yoga pose, maybe. It's a lot of favorites. But just laying down and literally just letting the wall support your legs. It's so calming. It's funny because I know I say a lot of these things a lot, even in my yoga classes. But today a lady came up to me at the end of class and she said, I was watching this chiropractor that I watch on YouTube, and he was saying if you lay down and have your legs up on the wall for 20 minutes at night, you could almost fall asleep or something. And I thought, how many times have I said in class that, like, that, like you say things and people don't really remember, is what I'm saying. But if you haven't tried that yet, lay down on the floor. If you need a blanket or something to make it softer, you can. Yoga mats. I mean, you really don't need anything. But if you have a cold floor, you might need something, sometimes a blanket or something. And take your bottom all the way up to the wall and your legs straight up. If that's not comfortable, like if your bottom is lifted up a little bit, scoot back to where it can be on the floor, or you can put a pillow under it. I like to have mine on my bottom on the floor, and I can go all the way to the wall. But some people don't, and they back up a little bit because their flexibility isn't quite a 90-degree angle, or their bone structure is like not as comfortable for them. But you could have a cushion or something or pillow under your low back, and you just have your legs up there, and it's just super good and calming for your body, your brain, and even just the perspective shift. It's another thing, is like laying down in a hammock or on the grass if you don't have a lot of bugs like we do here in Florida. Laying down where you can look up at the trees, look up at the sky, super, super calming. And I'm sure you know things that are calming too. A fire, a campfire. Not when it's dry, not when it's not good fire conditions, but even a candle. I love a flame. I love a flame that's flickering. It's always been calming for me. So I think that's it for today. I will be back, and I'm gonna have some guests. I talked about it. I thought I know I talk about things on here and say I should do this, and sometimes the ideas come up while I'm talking to you, and then I think, oh my goodness, now I have to implement this. Now I have to figure out how to do it. And I've had guests on here before, but it is a lot more work to coordinate. And it is fun just to talk sometimes, but I really do want to have other people on here. I think it'll be really beneficial for you. And it's more fitting for the name of my podcast, Inspiring Women with ADHD, if I have more people than myself. Even though I feel it you are inspiring me too out there in the world for sure. But I will have some guests. I'm super excited. A lot of them are just like figuring out ADHD, just barely diagnosed. And some have taken that and they've studied it and they are helping other women. One is even a doctor that helps women with ADHD. And I'm excited. So that, and then also I just promised you today that I make some shorter videos with the breathing techniques so that you can get them. And I'll see, I can probably just take those and make those little small podcast episodes too, just the audio. You won't be able to see what's going on with them if you don't like watching YouTube as much. And the audio might not be as good as this microphone is for just talking podcasts, but at least you'll be able to hear the breathing because it cuts off my breathing. It doesn't pick it up for some reason, which is probably good so you don't hear every breath I take, every move I make. I do love sting. But I guess that's it for today. Have a fabulous week. It is March. March, March, March. March 4th is one of my favorite days because it's a sentence. March 4th. And then May the 4th be with you. That's the Star Wars one. I get them confused sometimes. But I'm kind of surprised that somebody just told me this morning that it's daylight savings time this weekend. I'm not ready for that yet. That means I have to get up earlier on Sunday. And it'll be darker in the morning, right? No, lighter in the morning. No, darker in the morning. Yeah, darker in the morning. Those of you who don't live where they change the time, it's good in some ways because you get a longer day in the summer, like more daylight. But it's hard to keep track of it, and you always have to go change your clocks and stuff. Take care. I will be back, and get in touch with me if you can. I'd love to hear from you. That's my favorite. Whatever, I'm on Threads, Instagram, trying to get better at my Instagram account, but I got sidetracked and went into Threads last week instead. And I have my website that has a way to sign up for my newsletter, and then you can just email if you want from there. Talk to you later. Bye. Help other women find the show. Rate, review, share with someone you know. Help other women find my show. Rate, review, share with someone you know. Hurry before you forget. Open windows, broken shadows. Frozen dreams are left for tomorrow. Without a cause, no time for a pause. The silence of sound has yet been found, but not by me.